Hello and welcome to the Inquisitorial Archive. My name is Kevin O'Rourke and today I'll be reviewing Disciples of the Dark Gods for Dark Heresy, published by Fantasy Flight Games. This book, when Fantasy Flight Games took over the Dark Heresy line, apparently was about 100 pages in a box that was being handed over to them from Black Industries. So they finished this one off. This book is... I quite like this book. It's a lot of stuff's connected to the Calixis Sector. It is for Dark Heresy. You could take certain elements and put them in things. It's broken up in three sections. You've got your heretic stuff, your xenos stuff, and your mallefic stuff. Each of these breaks down to separate little areas we should give a couple of pages on different groupings. For example, you get some quite cool groups like quite varied. I actually quite like them. You've got and stats for some of their guys, but mostly background, which, to be honest, when you're looking for inspiration, this is a great book to have there for, and not just for your Dark Heresy, just the fact that it gives so much background stuff. It's a great one for if you have Rogue Trader as well, or even Black Crusade. It's a good one to pick up, that even if you're not going to use the play Dark Heresy itself, or even Only Wars, though, because the front is so close. You end up with sections on one of my favourites of... I won't go through all of them, but I'll just say about some of my favourites. My favourite in the Heretica section are the Temple Tendency. Now, the Temple Tendency is a very cool idea. It's basically when your man Van Gogh, I can't remember his name, I think it's Van Gogh or something like that, when he was both the Ecclesiarch, this is the Reign of Blood, I think it was called, or something like that, or the Age of Apostasy. During the Age of Apostasy, he was both the head of the Ecclesiarchy and the Administrator. He basically ruled the Imperium, and he set himself up as God. This is the founding. If it's a big thing in 40k, it happened like 4,000 years ago or something in the background. But when this was going on afterwards, Sebastian Torquin, so it's a big, huge bit of background I won't go into. Usually, when Sebastian Tor, the guy who helps reform the Imperium, reforge it, get rid of this corrupt leader. Before this point, there was one imperial religion. It was clearly defined. There was a couple of heretical ones, such as the one Sebastian Tor was a member of. After this point, Sebastian Tor and the guys, when they reformed the Imperium, decided, like, okay, well, you can worship the Emperor in many ways. There's many ways, as long as you follow a couple of similar areas here, and you don't diverge too much from that. And that's what they do. So that's why you've got guys running around who are members of the cult of the Emperor Revenant, and the cult of the Spider, and the Red Cult of Redemption, and these various other imperial groups. But although they tried to hunt down many of the members of this the previous Imperial Creed, some of them snuck away using false names, different things they managed to get away, and some of them later on managed to wind their way into the Calixis Expanse before it became the Calixis Sector. And later on, when the Crusade was going, they just snuck in while the witch hunters were still out there looking for the various people, and the Inquisition were still looking for people, and the new version of the Ecclesiarchy was looking for people. So they're pretty cool to put in. They've stayed quiet and they've infiltrated the Ecclesiarchy in the Calixis Sector, and they basically view the current Ecclesiarchy as heretics. They view the common people as heretics as well, but it's not the common people's fault. They are being deceived, they're being tricked. So you end up with a quite cool situation where you can put in bad guys who also believe in the Emperor, who also fully worship the Emperor, the secret society that basically believe the Imperium has been taken over by heretics, and they're trying to work back against him. And you can even make an argument. If somebody goes, "Oh no, but your man who during the Age of Apostasy, he was really horrible." It's like, yeah, that's one guy, but how many members of the Ecclesiarchy afterwards have been really horrible? So you might have a point in different ways. You're like, are you going to tell me of the 10,000 years of the Imperium, the 6,000 years we were worshipping him the wrong way? Are you going to tell me for the majority of the Imperium's existence we were worshipping them the wrong way? You can make some very strong arguments with them, and they've got some cool things where they've got groupings. It's quite nice. I actually like the idea of putting up guys who also believe in the Emperor and really believe it. You could even throw in some... I firmly have no problem throwing in guys who are pure of... Well, I'd make them quite rare, but guys who have the pure of faith talent with this, because they do honestly believe in the Emperor. They're more believe that they should have the rightful place. Obviously, they've got a lot of bad habits as well, as is the Ecclesiarchy. They're quite cool. Another sample of a very cool one, this time from the xenos section. It's called the Amarantine Syndicate. it's an organization that they deal in various void vessels and transporting goods and merchants and things. But behind the scenes, they're being orchestrated by a group called the Principles, who are actually a xenos race, who basically want to turn humanity to a point into cattle. They're very sneaky about it. They don't want the Imperium to know that they're there, and there's only suspicions about them, and as to however they've infiltrated through using the Amarantan Syndicate as a cat's paw. Well, they don't want people to know, and they're keeping very quiet about it, but they find eating human brains, it's like a narcotic to them. It's addictive. But they're not stupid, very clever enemies. They're also all nulls. So that's kind of an odd angle that, using psychic powers against them isn't going to work terribly well. It works out. They just work out quite cool, and they're very dangerous. I have seen a GM put them into Death Watch games, and the Slout, the race who the Principles are, they can hold up against, as written in this book, against Space Marines and Death Watch. You're just going to have to put a few more of them in, or more of their human mercenaries and things. They're quite cool. If you want to have a bit more investigative thing, but real horrible monsters. They look like they're made out of loads of maggots. However, they are able to make these suits that they can look like a normal person. Of course, they're still a null, but they can look like a normal person, and they can walk around an Imperial place and be seen in the distance, no problem. They could even have a conversation with you. And they don't seem to have the problem that human nulls have of people necessarily just instinctively hating you. Or they don't seem to make any mention of it in any of the readings of any of the Slout. But they are nevertheless immune to psychic powers. They come up in one or two adventures, and they're incredibly dangerous. They're great if you want. You can have lots of little human and well geared or less well geared if you're using, even if the Amarantan Syndicate itself is using cat's paws and things like that. You can have lots of cool adventures with these guys. In fact, I like them so much. Like the Slout themselves, and using the Amarantan Syndicate, you could definitely mine these guys, and they could be great in a Star Wars game or whatever. Just not just 40k. They are really good. They've also got a lot of other cool little Xenos ideas. A lot of original stuff. You don't end up with too much stuff that you'd find in mainstream, just regular 40k. You know about that. You can, a lot of people have. They've got their collections of White Dwarf. They've read their different things. They've read novels. This is a lot of it is new stuff or interesting takes on things. When you're coming to the demon section, you got some cool stuff. Like there's a group called the Menagerie who are all in line with Tzeentch, and they put on performances, but they subtly influence the people they're doing the performance for, and they can give them insanity and corruption. Those set them on the path to following the Dark Gods, to following Tzeentch. You also have the Pilgrims of Hate. The Pilgrims of Hate are a somewhat nihilistic organisation who they serve chaos, bring chaos undivided. They will use sorcery, they'll use whatever they need to. They're another malefic group. But at the end of the day, they basically think the universe is horribly corrupt, needs to be destroyed. Even at the top levels, they don't even, they only pay lip service to chaos at the top levels. They'll do sorcery rituals, they'll do whatever, but at the end of the day, the higher levels of it believe the Chaos Gods just want to use us. They're wrong. They just want to tear down the galaxy. They originated in the Calixis Sector from the world of Malfi. So you got some pretty cool stuff for them there. You also have a very cool section to back if you just want. They don't give stats for these guys. Not in this book anyway. But they have a series of bad guys who sometimes, in some of the books they show up later on, they're given stats and things. But you have a series of bad guys who are the most wanted by the Inquisition in the Calixis Sector. You have a fallen interrogator who is a pretty dangerous guy. You have the because he knows a lot of the secrets. Like he was on the verge of becoming an Inquisitor himself. There's Myrcilla Cinderfell, a servant of Slaanesh herself, who is incredibly psychotic and dangerous. You have Magus Vatek, a fallen Magus, who is completely deranged and insane. And he's obsessed with acquiring Dark Age technology and just lore, and he doesn't have even the standard moral. He doesn't have the constraints that a normal tech priest would have. The stuff that you're not supposed to do. He doesn't care. He wants to understand the forbidden stuff, which makes him a very dangerous maybe not necessarily the leader of an organization. You could first introduce him as an ally, but start putting yourself there. It's very cool. The Burning Princess is another one. She is a pyromancer psyker, but they go into details in her and this, and she later shows up in Ascension, as do some of these guys, that she is arguably an alpha level psyker. They actually say, some people argue that she's just a really high level beta psyker, but I really know the background for Arcades means she is terrifying. And her rules, when they show up in Ascension later on, show it, and they've got a cool bit of background on her. They have a fallen missionary who has become a servant of the dark gods and is good at converting people because he's training as missionary, and he goes out and continues converting people, but now he's converting people, and he's not necessarily trying to conquer everyone himself. He's helping cults coordinate with each other. He's a fantastic middleman. There's Tobias Belasco. There's two noble families who are, very important on Malefic. The Belascos and the Mackins. But this guy is horribly corrupt. He's a nasty business. He's a nasty customer. And the last one they have down is the Unknown Heretic. The Unknown Heretic is pretty scary because they don't know who he is. It's basically that Inquisitors and Inquisitorials have been disappearing, have been dying, and the only way that all these guys could be dying is that they've ruled out, it can't be a fluke, somebody on the inside is taking out Inquisitors. Somebody well placed is taking out Inquisitors. Now, if this information isn't enough to get you starting to seriously consider getting this book, because I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. They also have the Pale Throne, which is a mutant revolution that started on Tranche, which is splintered, and they're going all over Calixis Sector, some of the leaders of it. It's a mutant revolution that is not in league with chaos. Only small elements of it are in league with chaos. It's cool if you want to have mutant stuff and not just have, there's chaos that's coming out. They might have a few witches, but not necessarily sorcerers. Now, you could always throw in one or two, but they're cool to have a bit of a different adventure with. Depends what level your group's at, or how you're going to do this. And they can show up anywhere because their their leadership is scattered to the four winds. But at the back of the book, now I usually don't go into terribly large amounts of detail, and I'm not going to give away I'm going to give away some spoilers. So spoiler alert, if you're not planning on GMing Dark Heresy or GMing one of the games taking this, and you could seriously modify this for any of the games, because it is a great adventure. I've run it myself, I've talked to other people who've run it. I ran it for my group. Actually just somehow managed to find they found the almost exact straight way out just through sheer fluke. But the adventure is called The House of Dust and Ash. Once more, if you're not playing on GMing, it's big spoilers here, and trust me, this thing kicks off something really awesome. But if you're thinking about GMing, listen up. It starts by default, because you're Dark Heresy group, your Inquisitor is seconding your Acolyte cell, your group of Acolytes, to another Inquisitor called Silas Marr, who's a bit of an odd guy. He crops up in some of the books. He's an odd guy because he lives on the world of Solomon. And Solomon, the Calixis Sector, the area that he lives in, is regarded as administrative, basically territory. Not all the local laws of the Calixis Sector apply here. As Inquisitor, who set up shop specifically here. He's an old guy, he's in a wheelchair, he's different things going on. But he's basically telling you, he wants you to go on. One of his agents found out something at a place called the House of Dust and Ash. The rogue trader Rasmus Harlock, who's been missing for over 300 years, he's been declared dead by the administration, and here and a few other places his goods are being auctioned off. But the Harlocks have an incredibly dark reputation. They've gotten involved in stuff that is forbidden, rogue trader or not. They were known to have gotten involved in some nasty stuff, and the reason that no one has to take up the mantle is Erasmus Harlock was the last of his line, not because his family fell to some ill, not because they suffered badly due to the whims of fate. They suffered at the hands of Erasmus. Later on in the adventures that follow on from here, you find out why, and it's pretty cool. Basically, something happened. You find out that apparently some of his wife and his child die at the hands of one of his cousins, who's become a follower of the Dark Gods and turned to a pirate, attacks him, and Apparently, although it gets more interesting when you go into some of the other stuff, apparently he just cracks. And he starts wiping out his family. Everyone. He just starts killing his cousins, nieces, nephews. Doesn't matter. He just starts slaughtering them all. And he was a genius. He was combining warpcraft, xenos tech, dark age tech, archeo tech, all these different things. He was a genius and a very scary individual. So that's why he was the last of his line. Hasn't been seen in 300 years. And the group is to be sent off to this area called the House of Dust and Ash, which is one of their strongholds where they're going to start auctioning off some very similar things. Now, Inquisitor is interested because, well, with all the dodgy stuff that's being sold there, with all the nasty, horrible xeno stuff, sorceress stuff, forbidden technologies, you're going to get a lot of heretics coming out of the woodwork. And one of his agents already requested backup. So it's like, okay, I'll send in some guys. You're the guys for the job. I need somebody now. That's why I asked your Inquisitor. So I'm having you guys being sent in. And initially you're going to go in, check out the situation, see who's there. We're going to take a head count of what's going on. Might do some stuff later on. But right now I'm going to send you in. And you have an adventure going in. You go across these sky boats that are going... They're hovering across the ground. Imagine something from... It's a Return of the Jedi, where they're Jabba the Hutt is going feeding the guys to the Sarlacc pit and stuff like that. Something like that, except they're going across water and it's a hive world. It's really horrible. I have some adventures. You meet some characters there. They have different groups there of people who are going meeting up. When you get to part 3, it gets really fun. It's actually part 3. You only get to the House of Dust and Ash itself. They start basically have a bunch of... I've seen people... you get a bunch of... good descriptions of different areas. There's also a small town and you could stretch this out. You could do sessions of this if you really wanted. Or you could just get to the meat of it. You have various corrupt items, and you can make up... It's a great place to put in items that people are bidding on. Except for... when you get to the main auction, you can see all these things. They're all in cases. You can't interfere with them. There's plenty of guards around. You can talk to some of the other people who are there for the auction, find out bits about them. I use the excuse of, personally, because there is a slout here. Lovely fun. I used the excuse of, because the players had a psyker, when one of them noticed this, he said, "Oh yes, actually I know I'm a null, and I work for this large organization. And they basically hired me as their accountant because nobody can mind read me." That seemed like a perfectly reasonable explanation to the guys, and they paid not particularly much more attention to him. But in the middle of the auction, an event happens. There's a item known as the Gilded Widow, which is this creepy kind of fortune teller in a box thing. If you've ever seen Big, imagine one of those kind of type things, the movie with Tom Hanks. And you can ask it different questions, and reportedly it will always tell you the truth, although it sometimes, says it in different odd ways. But eventually, if the person asks it, you can ask, is Harlock truly dead? Or who are the descendants of Harlock? If there's any other Harlocks there. And it says that Harlock is returning, and that hell will follow him. Actually, I'll read out the thing. It's like, is Harlock truly dead? The Traveller and the Scion both do live, one without and the other within. Blood of his blood, born of his line, flesh so frail, caught in this web. Death shall be their inheritance. Harlock returns, and hell follows with him. She answers things like that, but it's really cool because all of a sudden the place starts to go into lockdown. The guys who are the caretakers of this place, who have been there over the years, are cultists in service to Harlock, who they haven't had contact with him for the 3 centuries, but they still firmly follow him. They're firmly indoctrinated. They've passed it through generations. The area is cut off with a void shield. There is supposedly only one way out. You end up with some very cool stuff. It's a different factions. There's a minor rogue trader there and everything. You can really easily modify this adventure for any of the other games with a bit of thought, and it's well worth doing. But you end up with after that point, it gives you some loose guidelines for things. There's only one way for the players to get out. What has actually happened here is Harlock is coming. This is the first Nell that he's coming back, and this is a prologue for the Harlock trilogy, which is 3 books that come later. Quite a good story. You have to modify a few things. I'm not, I don't completely love it. There's different problems, but it's quite fun. And even just to run this adventure by himself, it's just that Harlock has set up a situation where he's going to return, but he's worried. Well, he's not worried. He suspects that perhaps one or two were able to evade him and fake their deaths of his family line. So this is to ensnare any of those that have come in, or any interested parties who are there. So any interested parties who might know more than he wants them to know. So before his return, this is the herald of it. This is the moment he begins his journey back. When you read out more about him in the future books, which I may do a review on in future, it's a very cool story. I've run it in a game that started as Dark Heresy, but I had it that one of the players. Actually, I had it that the Inquisitor had. I didn't have it that the Inquisitor had loaned him there. I started to venture off it. Silas Marr was the Inquisitor, and he had specifically picked him because he had dug through all the records and he had found the player characters, and they were the last heirs of this line, and he was sending them in as bait unknown to them. And it paid off, but he's kind of like, okay, this is a problem. So after this adventure, he got them recognised as the heirs of the Harlock dynasty and given the warrant of trade, and he got them set up with a ship, and they're basically, it was like their job. I said it was a hybrid game. I used some of the stuff from Rogue Trader and some of the stuff from Dark Heresy, and it's basically your job now is to go out there, find out where the hell Harlock is, what he's been doing, and stop him. You know, you need to check everywhere, and you need to build up your forces so you can do this. So they did, and we got through adventure, including, I mean, seriously, we had so much fun with it. It's almost like a separate review for the House of Dust and Ash at the end, because it kicks off something awesome. The last session that I did of the Harlock trilogy, when we got to the end, we did a marathon, 14 hours straight session I ran. I think we started off around the day, I think we were going till 7 in the morning. We just went straight. All of us were luckily in college kind of type thing, but we just went straight with it, went to the end, and we'd have planned it ahead because I knew it was going to be so awesome. Didn't want to stop and have it going, and we had great fun. But the book itself is quite good. The adventure in the back kicks off something awesome. Regardless if you're playing Dark Heresy or not, if you're going to play one of the 40k RPGs, there's stuff new you can use, because a lot of it is background stuff. There's a few bits of rules, but there's definitely stuff you can use here. I know a friend of mine is currently running a very modified version of the Harlock Legacy, because he knows I've run it. I know some of the players have played in it. He's running it in Death Watch, and the stuff is just as scary, and we don't know what's going on. It's terrifying. It's great. It's fantastic fun. So I'll leave it at that, because I'll just keep saying this is great for a while. And this is one I really strongly recommend. Okay, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you, and goodbye.